Join me, Jonesy, for interviews, recaps and much more. So tune in, unwind and get your sporting fix. G'day everybody, this is the 25th episode of the Sporting Fix. There's a lot to talk about today with a lot going on in the past week of sport. We've got on the Fixers forecast, we've got tennis, Wimbledon, Carlos Alcaraz winning his second in a row. We've got the Round 18 review. We've got AFL suspension outcry, which has just totally blown up the AFL world with everybody's thoughts and opinions on some controversial decisions taking people out of the game. We've got Tassie's new stadium, who believe they can host Test cricket. I'll have a little chat about that later on in the podcast regarding that, because it's an interesting decision. And of course, Jonesy's tips to end the segment. So there's a lot to talk about in this 25th episode. We've saved a really good one for today, and let's get straight into it. I want to start on tennis's Wimbledon, because it was a game that just went very quickly, the final, didn't it? The tournament went really quickly as well. Obviously, Carlos Alcaraz won the tournament, and he's 21 years of age. But how good was this game of Wimbledon? You know, we were only just into the second week, I think, when the amount of games with 5 setters, the record was broken. So I think the Australian Open in 2024 had a lot of 5 setters, and I think it equaled or broke the record for most in the Open era. And then you fast forward to Wimbledon 2024, and just beyond the first week of Wimbledon, you've already got the record smashed. So it was a brilliant tournament, wasn't it, in terms of viewing? And well done to Carlos Alcaraz. He's 21 years old. He has won his second Wimbledon in a row. To win Wimbledon is special, but to win it in consecutive years is elite. To verse Djokovic, to beat Djokovic is brilliant. To beat him in straight sets in a final is unheard of. He has now won 4 Grand Slams. He's 21 years old. What he does on the court is phenomenal. It boggles my mind. You know, he was versing Djokovic, who's the best defensive tennis player on the planet. Djokovic does not lose points easily, and obviously he doesn't. He's won 88 tournaments, 88 titles. He knows how to play the game. He's the best defensive player on the planet. And Alcaraz was returning serves brilliantly. And Djokovic was really, really adamant, and he was really, really defensively on. But Alcaraz, I just felt like, was that touch better. I mean, Djokovic was, hitting balls down the line on the baseline, and Alcaraz was picking them off his feet, turning them into winners. It is something that you do not see. It is something so rare, something so special. If you obviously love tennis, you'll know a lot about Carlos Alcaraz, but if you don't like tennis or you haven't really been amongst this sport, you've got to turn the TV on and watch this bloke, because he's hitting winners off Djokovic when it lands on the baseline at his feet. I mean, no one else can do that. His serve is brilliant. His hand-eye coordination is absurd. For a 21-year-old, he's going to be the next Federer. He's already won 4 Grand Slams, and he's 21. Djokovic is 36 or 37. This bloke is going to be something really, really big, and he already is, and he holds himself up so well. He is something so special, and it was a good day for Spain, a good week for Spain. Obviously, they won the Euros and the soccer too, but Carlos Alcaraz, 2 Wimbledons in a row, 4 Grand Slams, 21 years old. I keep banging on about this bloke, because he wiped Djokovic out of the park. Straight sets in a final you don't see every day. If you beat Djokovic in straight sets in any game, that's unbelievable. You just don't see it. In a final, no words can etch what it means. No words at all. So I just want to acknowledge how good Carlos Alcaraz was over the past couple of weeks in his tennis, and he'll be heading off to the US Open to try and do the exact same to get his 5th Grand Slam ticked off. We now move to the AFL suspension, and there's a lot of talk about what they've done. There's a lot of talk about how, free Heaney, there's a lot of people unhappy with the decisions that the AFL have made regarding suspensions and hits. The one that really, really got on my nerves was the Charlie Cameron one. He got 3 weeks, and I've got the video up here, and I'm going to watch it myself in real time. Because if I'm looking at this...
Inside 50, off again. With that lunging spoil. Close to Cameron. Fletcher with the bump. Dug it in there. Cameron locks him up.
That is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. What else could he have done in that situation? He's got Hoff literally in front of him. There's no other way you can even tackle. And to get 3 weeks, oh, that is ridiculous. That's the one that got on my nerves. That is the one that really got on my nerves. What else are you meant to do? It is ignominious what the AFL have done. I've got no words. 3 weeks for a tackle that is just as fair as it can get. I just don't know what you're meant to do in that situation. Because to me, the AFL, the decision that they made to give Cameron 3 weeks, what is he meant to do? Because the AFL is suggesting he just walks away and lets West Coast straight through and lets Hoff straight through. You're meant to tackle in this game. That is as fair as a tackle you can get. As fair as a tackle you can get. I'm lost for words. Malcolm Rosas got 1 week for elbowing someone in the chin, and Charlie Cameron gets 3 weeks. The consistency is lacking. The IQ is lacking. The AFL is in absolute dire straits. People are turning their heads on this game because of suspensions. And there are too many rules in this game right now. You've got the insufficient attempt to keep the ball in play. Pretty much from now on, if you kick it and it goes out of bounds and no one touches it, it's deliberate. That's pretty much where this game is heading. If you lay a tackle and this person hits the ground, they're pretty much getting suspended. So you've pretty much got to bear hug them now, is what the AFL are really suggesting. Cameron's tackle has now turned the AFL into absolute poo. They are now pretty much saying that you have to bear hug tackle because if you tackle in the other way, you're getting 3 weeks. It's ridiculous. And now they're holding the ball. You know, we don't know what is holding the ball, what isn't holding the ball. So I really hope that in this off-season, Andrew Dillon, Laura Kane, the AFL, they come together and they think of a methodical way that will help. A methodical way that will give clarity to the AFL world, the spectators, the fans, the players in particular, and the umpires. I don't even think the umpires know what's holding the ball, what isn't. Because you've got an umpire 5 metres away from the play, playing on, and you've got an umpire 100 metres the other way saying holding the ball to the same play. The umpires don't know what's going on. The footy fans don't know. The footy players, Laura Kane, Andrew Dillon, they have to get together this off-season and change things right at that moment. Because the AFL needs clarity and it needs to be a better game than what it is at the moment. That's my little spiel on the suspension. And I think it was certainly valid. Tasmania's new stadium I'm now moving to. It's obviously, you would have seen the features, the diagram of what it looks like. It's got a roof, tinted roof. Actually, no, I think it's a glass roof or something. You can see through it. There's light through it. I don't mind the structure of it. I don't mind what it looks like. I don't mind the idea that it can host cricket games, but I just don't think it can host test cricket games. Because firstly, it needs, like, the capacity needs improvement. You can't host a test match with 20,000 people. You know, if you get Australia, India playing or Australia, England playing, you're going to, like, you need more than 20,000 people in the house. But I'm happy for them to host Big Bash matches, T20 matches, ODIs. Test cricket's not the way to go. Test cricket's very traditional. It's a traditional game. I think you keep it to your Melbourne, to your Sydney, to your Brisbane, to your Adelaide, to your Perth, because that's just what it's been like for so many years, and you don't want to change that. Test cricket is such a traditional sport. You don't want to change things that doesn't need to be changed. So I don't like the fact that they're trying to put Test cricket into Tasmania. It was just an idea. I'm just not for it. I'm happy for BBL matches to be there, as I said, and other formats of the game. Test cricket can stay out of that state. But I like the design. I like the design of it. It looks pretty cool. 20-odd thousand is obviously better than Blundstone. So they've got a good structure there, and the Devils will play well down there. You'd suspect. It's a good looking stadium, just not for Test cricket. Is pretty much what I'm saying. So hopefully they agree with me, and I'm sure a lot of people will be thinking the same, that, the game of Test cricket should be kept to the 5 states and the 5 cities that it is already in. Now we go to the Round 18 review, and it was the Cats and Geelong that faced off on Friday night. The Cats won by 20 points, and they now find themselves in the top 3. Boy, you just can't write them off, can you? I'll be the first one to say that I wasn't expecting them to be in the top 4. I was expecting them to drop out a couple of weeks ago, but they've found some form. They've hit the top 3, and this game is so unpredictable. Teams are changing momentum. We just saw the Dogs beat the Blues, and the week before they got smashed by Port Adelaide, who find themselves outside of the 8. So this game is moving, it's dynamic, it's changing always. So it's such a good game to be a part of. And Geelong, they could have won by more. They had 26 scoring shots to the Pies, who had 21 scoring shots. They ended up winning by 20 points, as I said. But you got to mention Humphries. He had 96% disposal efficiency, and he had about 23 disposals, so he was really good. And he's such a young kid too, like Lawson Humphrey. He's 21 years old, beautiful defender. He's certainly one to watch, and for a kid to be so young, people say, oh, the Cats, they're old, they're slow, they're out of date. No, they're not. They've got Holmes, they've got Myers, they've got Bowes, Humphries, De Koning. They're starting to become a young side, and they're building players who are young, producing them into really good players like your Dempsey, like your Conway, like your Humphries. So they're a good team. They're going to be a good team for a while, in my opinion. I can't see them dropping off in a long time. Takos had 32 touches. He's just a genuine weapon. But again, the Pies, they have real issues defensively. There's been a lot of talk on Darcy Moore and what he's been doing, whether he's not good enough for AFL level, which, honestly, I can't believe those comments. He obviously deserves to be in the AFL lineup. Obviously, he's just hit a slump of form. And, people are saying that he should go to their best key defender. But if he's not doing well on, smaller forwards, then he's not going to do well on their best forward. So I think the Pies are just... They got a risky move with wherever they put Darcy Moore, because he is in a slump of form. But people are saying they should put him into the best, next to the best full forward. And if he does that with the form that he's in, he'll kick 5, 6 will be kicked on him. So they've got to look out now, the Pies. They sit in 12th position. It is do or die for them against the Hawks, and that is going to be an absolute cracking match of football. We now go to the game that the Pies are versing with the Hawks, who won against the Dockers in Launceston. I did tip the Hawks to win. They did exactly that. It's a fortress down there in Tasmania for the Hawks. They just play there every single time, and they win every single time. Sicily kicked 3 goals, and they just... Look, they didn't own possession. In fact, Freo had more touches. They had, I think, 20-odd more touches than Hawthorn, but they were a bit, empty with the way they used the footy. They weren't efficient inside 50. They got beaten in clearances. They had more uncontested possessions, but they just didn't really use the footy. They didn't really gain meterage. They switched it and didn't do a lot with the footy. So Freo, their ball movement is good, but on the weekend it was quite terrible, actually. So they lose by 13 points, and it was well done. Day and Warple had the most touches with 24, which is not what you see very often. Andrew Brayshaw had the top disposals for Fremantle, and he only got 23 disposals. So it's interesting. Freo now find themselves outside of the top 4. They sit in 5th position, and Hawthorn sit in 13th, equal points with the Dogs, the Suns, and the Pies, but their percentage falls under the latter, which is on 95%. So they've got a lot to do if they want to make finals. They've got to win every game from now on because percentage will not do them well. Swans and North Melbourne. Swans absolutely wiped the Roos out of the park. A 79-point thrashing up in Sydney. Goulden was brilliant, had 41 touches. Warner turned the game on its head. North were down by 2 points at quarter time, and you enter Chad Warner into the game in the second quarter, and he just turns this game to shreds. I think he had 8 score involvements in one quarter, which I don't think the history of the game has ever seen. 8 score involvements in one quarter. That is 32 on track. He would be on track for 32 score involvements. A team doesn't even get that much as in itself, let alone one individual player. Well done to Logan McDonald, 4 goals. He's playing really well. Papley kicked 4. Obviously, Warner and Goulden dominated possession. Sheasel was alright. He had 29 touches. But again, the possession count, the efficiency inside 50, the stoppages, the possessions, the marks, the control was all in favour of Sydney. And if you win by 79 points, of course, you're going to be owning the opposition in all those formats of the game. And they laid 6 more tackles. They did the 1%ers right. They were just brilliant as a team, and it's why they're first on the ladder. They had 2 losses in a row. They come against the worst team in the competition and wipe them out of the park, which is what they were expected to do when they did. The Dogs and the Blues, I should say. This was an interesting one. The Dogs, I do rate the Dogs as a team, but they've got to get more consistent. I love the way when they are playing at their best, they are the best because their defence is on song, their midfield and their forward. I love Lobb in the back line. I said 2 weeks ago that his change to the back line can change this whole club in itself. Tim English did well. He had, 32 touches and he was winning a lot of the contests against De Koning, who only had 13 hit-outs, but Ugle-Hagan, 4 goals, Riley West, 4 goals, Bailey Dale had 30 touches. This team was really, really good, and if you go to the mark count, I know Lobb took 7 marks, which is a lot, but it wasn't even close to Kemp, who took 11 marks for the Blues. But I love his aerial presence, Lobb. He doesn't need to get in the air that much because he's already 207 centimetres. He can just jump and he will be taller. He'll be a ruler's length taller than everyone else. And he's got buckets for hands. He doesn't drop too many. His intercept possessions is through the roof, and that is why the Dogs sit in 10th position a game outside the 8. They've got a healthy percentage, and they are certainly on track to make the 8, and I did say a couple of weeks ago they will do so. We'll be looking at the tips for next round where they host the Cats, where they don't host the Cats, they play the Cats in Geelong, which will be a very good game. I don't know if they'll win it, but it's certainly going to be one to watch. So the Blues, on the other hand, are in a little bit of, they're fraught with danger. There's a bit of danger associated with them. They do sit second, but now they're equal on 44 points with the Cats. So it's interesting. It's interesting as to where they sit, whether they'll make the top 2 or not, because you'd love to make top 4 and host a final. That is their goal. Will they make it? It's a very good question. The Crows and the Saints, Crows wiped him out of the park, really. It was a tense game. It was pretty even for the first half, and then the Crows got... you almost say the first 3 quarters, the Crows started to get going in the last quarter where they kicked 4 goals and the Saints only scored 1 point. That's where the game really took off, and it was off the back of Rory Laird. It was off the back of Lockie Scholl. Riley Thilthorpe, an absolute beast now. His physique is certainly intimidating. Keys kicked 1 goal, 3. They could have had even more. Adelaide aren't great in terms of accuracy in front of the big 6, but they didn't really need to be on that occasion. They won by 32 points, but it's all too late. The Crows won't make finals. There's just a little bit of a little flicker of hope in the back end of the season for them. They won the possession count. Disposal efficiency was better. the stoppages, they had 8 more clearances, so they were going to win the game when they took off in that last quarter. The Dons and the Melbourne Demons. I've written the Melbourne Demons off for the past few weeks. I don't rate the way they play, but on the weekend they played extremely well. Without Gawn, without Petrarca for the first time since whoever knows. It was a game that was defied by Nick Martin. 4 goals, 26 disposals, 9 marks, 4 tackles. Just brilliant. The fact that Essendon lost with those sort of stats boggles my mind. He was the only one there for Essendon that could change the game, that could give them any spark of hope. And there was a glimmer of hope in that last quarter, but it was just, they left the bridge too far. Rivers had 29 touches, but Bailey Fritsch had 3 goals, Turner had 3 goals, Melksham had 2 goals. They won the game. Really, really good effort for the Demons. No one was expecting it. Essendon, Melbourne, you'd tip Essendon every time. And then if you take Gawn out of the equation, you take Petrarca out of the equation, you'd almost back the Dons to win by 50 plus points. Instead, they lose by 17. They had more touches. In fact, they had 50 odd more touches than Melbourne. Melbourne had 366 disposals. Essendon had 411. And yet they still lose the game. They had the chance to win. They had the possessions to win, but they didn't use it properly because their disposal efficiency was 72%, but their disposal efficiency inside 50 was 39%. They had 56 inside 50s and they only had 22 shots. You've got to convert when you go inside 50. Peter Wright was letting him down. You can talk to Matthew Lloyd about that. He'll have a bit to say about Peter Wright. Nick Martin was the only man that could really stand up and hold his head high because he kicked 4 goals and had 20-odd plus disposals. The Dons are now in a vulnerable position as they sit 6th on the ladder, and if Port win and the Essendon lose, then Essendon will be outside of the 8. So when we thought Essendon were top 4 favourites, they could now be outside of the 8 come the end of 2024. This game of AFL keeps boggling our mind. It's absolutely insane how big of a game this is and how important the next few rounds are. Suns and Port, it's the first time the Suns beat Port since 2011, and now they can sing the song against their rivals. Butters, obviously, Houston, Rosé played well, Flanders and Anderson, but then you go to the goal count, and it was pretty scaled out, and they sort of shared it around a bit. King, Rosas, Humphrey, Lukosius had 2 goals each, and Ben Long kicked a goal also. This was what surprised me. And people say possession is so important and possession wins your games. But the fact that Gold Coast had 70 less disposals and they won by 14 points completely wipes that theory out of the park. It's the way you use it. The fact that Port had more possession and a better efficiency, you'd almost back them to win the game every time. But they had a worse disposal efficiency inside 50, and that's where it counts. If you go disposal efficiency 90%, but you can't convert inside 50, you don't win games. This is the thing that stands out to me. The efficiency inside 50, it's what win your games, and it goes under the radar a lot. The Suns had 43% disposal efficiency inside 50 to Port had 38%. That's what won them games because they had 60 shots inside 50, and they converted 26 of them. So it's the efficiency inside 50 offensively that wins your games more than it is as a whole. Obviously, stoppages win your games. Port had minus 10 clearances, so Gold Coast got on top of them in the midfield game off the back of Anderson, off the back of Powell and your Flanders and your guys like that, your leaders of the club, which Dimmer will be happy with. They still are a chance. They sit 11th on the ladder. Had they won against North Melbourne, they could be inside the 8. But they didn't, so that's why Dimmer was so angry. But they still find themselves in a decent position, a position where they can propel themselves forward. It's going to be an interesting round. They obviously play the Giants in Sydney. Obviously, we know their record away from home is certainly not good. So if they win that, that'll give them a lot of relief. But we'll have to wait and see. Again, another round coming up. The Giants and Richmond. Obviously, the Giants won by 24 points. Kyron Briggs was brilliant, 32 hit-outs, 14 tackles and a goal. Whitfield had 35 disposals. Green had 4 goals and Hogan had 4 goals. So they did really well and they had more possession again. But again, their efficiency inside 50 was better. That's what won them games. It's this sort of rhythm. The team that wins usually most occasions has better efficiency inside 50 compared to the opposition. They had 24 shots from 36 inside 50s. That is a pretty good ratio. Compared to Richmond, who had 27 shots from 53 inside 50. So, this is what wins your games. And we go to the Lions and the Eagles game. And obviously, it was Neil that got the job done with 34 touches. McCluggage, 32 touches. And then Kyle Lohman with 2 goals. Danaher, Neil, Cameron, Hipwood, Rayner with 2 goals. So it was shared around evenly across the board. But we now go to the possession count. They had 4 more touches than the Eagles. It was pretty even around the contest from forward to the back half. Throughout the whole ground, it was pretty even contested possessions and uncontested possessions. But the clearances were in favour of Eagles, and that's what won them the games this time. This is what won Brisbane the game, was the stoppages. Everything is even on the stat sheet, but you go to the stoppage column and you've got +7 hitouts, you've got +9 clearances, you've got +2 centre clearances, and you've got +7 stoppage clearances, all in favour of Brisbane. That is what won them the game. You can go into the stat sheet and see everything else is even, but you go to the stoppages and it's all in favour of Brisbane. It's those little things that make you win games, and it made them win game in a big time. 13-point winners. They find themselves in the top 4. It was a big game for Brisbane, because I did say they'll make the top 4 and they are in there at the moment and they are in red hot form, but they've got a big task ahead of them with Sydney at the Gabba. What a game that'll be, another big round coming up. So that is round 18 review ticked off. We now go to the tips that I have for round 19, Jonesy's tips, and there's a bit to dive into now. We've got Marvel Stadium, the Dons and the Crows. The Dons will win that for me because it's at home. They need to hit some form, and I think they will. Giants and the Suns at NG Stadium. The Giants will win that sheerly because it's away from home. The Suns aren't good in front of, foreign areas. I mean, in 2024, they haven't won a game away from home, so I think that streak will continue. If it doesn't, then they might be able to make finals a little. They might be more in favour of making finals than not. But the Giants, I think, will win it. If they do win it, I think the Suns will be a bit of a rough chance to make finals. I don't think they will be able to make finals if they lose the game. So it's an elimination final for Gold Coast, this one. The Saints and the Eagles. Saints will win that pretty simple, but it's not a big game. Both teams aren't making finals. They're not going to, disrupt other teams' performance. The Hawks and the Pies at the MCG. Now, I've tipped the Hawks. I was thinking when I tipped the Hawks whether it was an upset or not, but the more I think about it, are the Hawks favourites going into this game against against Collingwood, I should say. It is 13th versus 12th. Hawthorn are in brilliant form. The Pies are in terrible form. I did tip the Hawks, and I think the Hawks may be favourites. And I might sound stupid in saying so, but the way that the Collingwood Magpies are playing, their defence will not hold up against Watson, against Bruce, against Gunston. It won't hold up. It will not hold up. And I don't even think the midfield will hold up. You've got Day, Meek. I think the Hawks will win. I think they will do. And I wouldn't even say it's an upset. I'd say they're favourites to win. And it's a big call, but I think I'm right. The Cats will beat the Dogs at the GMHBA Stadium. And again, a massive game for both teams. Dogs can get inside the 8 for the first time in a while, but it's going to be a really tough task in Geelong against the team sitting in 3rd position. We now go to the Port and the Tigers. The Port Adelaide Footy Club will win this. Again, when they win it, they can jump inside the 8 depending on what other teams' results are. This is a big game. The Lions and the Swans. This is the game of the round. This is the game of the round. It's at the Gabba. I've tipped the Lions. Could go either way. But if the Brisbane Lions win, then everyone's safe. But if Brisbane lose, then they can drop down. So every other team will be hoping that Swans win. I don't think they will. I think Brisbane will win, and that'll keep them in a secure place in the top 4. Dockers and the D's at Optus Stadium. I tip the Dockers, so they'll probably stay around 5th, 4th. They might even jump into the top 4 if they want, but the D's will be knocked out for good. I think if they do lose this match, they sit in on 8th position, but I don't think they will remain there. And then lastly, the Blues and the Roos. So the Blues will win that, and they will keep their spot in the top 2. So it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to analyse, and there are going to be a lot of results pending from here onwards until Sunday. Lots to look forward to, and if we just have a look, there'll be lots of snakes and ladders in terms of this ladder. There'll be a lot of chops and changes, teams moving up, teams moving down, and I'd love to skip forward now to Sunday and see what teams are placed inside the 8, because I could be surprised or I could be onto something. There's a lot to take in. Thank you for listening. Before I do end this segment, Spotify has been updated and has now removed the Q&A feature and have replaced it with regular comments. So you can still leave your comments on your footy team, how you think they're travelling, but it will no longer be shown on the prompt. So just leave your thoughts on the AFL team. Obviously, Spotify has done an update, so you'll have to put it down under the episode. It's a bit different. It should be straightforward. You should get the hang of it if you want to leave your comments on the AFL team. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Make sure you tune into this round of footy. There's a lot to take in, lots of changes on the ladder, as I did say. It's the 25th episode of the Sporting Fix. I'm Jonesy. Have a good night.